Good morning, everyone. If you want to go ahead and take a seat. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Timothy.
Hi, Timothy.
Hi.
Hi.
For those of you who are wondering, where is Grant? Him and the elders are not tied up in the basement downstairs. Don't go looking. No, I'm just kidding. They are on a retreat, spending some quality time together, diving into the Bible, into elder and pastor things, and playing games, having fun. I think they went for a hike. I think we have a few pictures, I think, of their time. I think cornhole. There we go. Stoking the fire, roasting marshmallows, maybe. Hiking. That's pretty awesome. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know where they actually are, so I have no idea. It looks amazing though. Probably not Alaska. So they're not here. So I don't want to say tasked. He asked our young adults group to lead the service.
Yay.
Big mistake. Huge mistake. I'm just kidding. We're excited to do it, and so we have not all of us here today. Fortunately, this is a busy school season right now with finals and a busy work season for some of us. So you get some of us, but not all of us. That's pretty much. It's going to be very different services than normal. So whatever you guys came in here expecting, probably not that. So
we're ready.
Yeah, perfect. Let's see, we got some announcements. I think first I'm just gonna kind of give a little introduction to everyone who will be helping, just so you know who they are. We have Will, we have Matt, we have Braden, and we have Abigail. And we have Laurel. Laurel's also helping a little bit too. She's not in the young adults group, but she wanted to help, so. Now we got some announcements. I know that, let's see, we'll do this the smart way. I'll use an actual paper instead of trying to remember everything. We'll do this in order here. This upcoming Saturday, we've got Gene Pride's Celebration of Life service. I think is it here?
Yes.
I think. So this Saturday at 11. This weekend we also have J&J visiting us. So they will be here this weekend. I don't know if there's a potluck. There's a potluck. There's a potluck. So there's a potluck.
Also, there will be a love offering.
Love offering as well?
There will be a love offering.
Okay. There will be a love offering as well that Sunday. We have a Women's Work Day coming up, May 8th, 9 to 1, 10?
Women's work. You want to say that again?
The Women's Work Day.
Women's work day.
With the
Or a work day.
This is a different thing. Sorry, there's no slide for that. There's no slide for this. I'm reading what's in the bulletin. Women's Work Day on May 8th. It's not the spring work day. Different thing. From 9 to 1. And then we have the spring church work day on May 10th from 9 to 1. Here, obviously. May 17th, we have our yard sale from 8 to 1 here. If you guys have any, I think they're still accepting donations. So if you have any donations, talk to either Brian West or my mom, Laurel Lentz, and they will get stuff sorted out with you. June 20th through 22nd, the church camping trip at Fishhook Park. I love camping. I don't know if everyone loves camping, If you're not a big camping person, that's okay. You can just come for the day on Saturday and hang out with us and have a great time.
There's a sign-up sheet for that now.
There's a sign-up sheet. And then this July, we have Camp Wooten for grades 3 through 6. So I believe there's also sign-up sheet for. There's also sign-up sheets for volunteer helpers for that as well. So those are some of the big events that we have coming up for our church. We also have lots of community group meetings. We have the one that us young adults are a part of. There's one that meets at Grant and Kim's. And there's one that meets at Chuck and Karen's. And then Chris and Danae also have one that meet on Wednesdays, okay. So, yeah, that's kind of what we got going on here at Richland Alliance. With that, I will invite Abigail up here. Not Abigail up here, Cambodia video. We'll have Cambodia video as a quick update on stuff happening in
For me,
Cambodia.
my question is why it happened to him. I didn't question God much, but I just question like,
Why him?
why him?
How have an accident that nobody should survive? Everybody would think that he will not live. God intervened. The power of Jesus healed him. He became a passionate evangelist.
All he knew that go and share the gospel. That is passion. This guy has just a simple motorbike and just travel. We cannot catch up with him.
Through the sharing of his testimony, 7 churches established.
It's amazing. It was amazing.
God's hand was upon him, and people were coming to the Lord left and right. He's very privileged to witness good news of Jesus Christ to all his brothers and sisters. And as a result, most of his siblings came to Christ, and one of them was Ian.
My brother used to be a mean person. He was selfish. After praying, he had love for others. He shared his faith. He was filled with compassion and kindness. I wanted to be a part of the family of Christ too. I asked my brother, how can I follow Jesus? I prayed, God, where you send me, I will go.
So Paul and Kate, they work alongside each other and really working well and always connecting.
While Carl was busy serving God on land, Ian was busy serving God on the lake.
And sometimes Paul had to come to the floating village to help his brother. And sometimes I see Ian come to the land, helping come. So they did like back and forth, and helping each other.
So wonders and miracles took place. New believers make new believers, make disciples. After several years of working alongside with Carl, we went on home assignment. We shared his story about God work on his life. One Sunday after we had shared, we finished and we on our way home.
All of a sudden, we look at our phone and we saw the notification about Mr. Kong.
It said that Carl and his brother were traveling from one province to the next and had an accident with an 18-wheeler's truck and full force collision, and Carl died instantly.
I probably read again and again, and I just say that it could not be true. It could not be true.
I just so overwhelmed at the loss and I grieve. This is like a brother to me.
When I said yes to God's call, I didn't fully understand how hard it would be. Following Jesus means carrying my cross just like he did.
We had planned to partner with his brother hand in hand serve together. Now as though God was removing his right arm. Shortly after Carl's death, we heard that Ian quit his job. He had a good, successful, prominent government job. We asked him why you quit your job before retirement and you lose all the benefits and to serve without receiving anything. He said, life is Lord. People are dying every day.
I see sheep without a shepherd, and I'm ready to take care of them. They are lost and confused. I have no reward on earth to offer them, but God promised a bigger reward.
He is calling into the floating village. Sometimes he travel, even if he didn't have any money, and he just like compelled, like I have to go, I have to share the gospel. Life is too short. Even to risk his life, he will do that because of the gospel.
Kian said, my brother did his job and he did it well. Now it's my turn to carry on the torch of my brother.
The floating village is really hard to reach. They don't have anything. They don't have any position. They never hear the gospel. That's why the goal is to go to them.
It's a lonely place, so they welcome to visit and they felt encouraged and felt loved. Wow, you would come all this way using precious fuel and come to visit me. He demonstrated that love of Christ by go visit them, even nobody willing to go to them.
As long as God gives me breath, I will continue to carry on the torch of my brother. And this is what keeps me going in the hardships. My God is faithful.
We still grieve the loss of our dear brother Tom, and we still don't have the answer. Why? But one day when we go up to heaven, we'll know the full answer. Right now, we just see the evidence that God never abandoned His church. He's building His kingdom in Cambodia.
Hello everyone. So, in our little youth group, we do different things to learn about God. And there are many different ways and situations to learn about God. And for us, we like to have fun. It's great to have fun and learn about God in the presence of friends. And we do this thing called the 4 W's to lead us through our night, to give us a little bit of structure and know what to do. So the first W is welcome. It's just something to let everyone feel comfortable and know that we're in the presence of friends and that we can feel safe to ask questions about God and share our thoughts to each other. So I'm going to lead you in a little game of Would You Rather. Now this in particular has to do with what we're going to learn about today in our other W, word. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 2 options. Would you rather this or that? So what I want you to do is I will give you first for this or that, and then secondly, I will say it again, and then you will raise your hand, this or that. So the first one, would you rather be very strong or very clever? So, who would like to be very strong? Okay, who would rather be very clever? Alrighty, someone who wanted to be very strong, just shout out a little reason why you chose that.
I get tired of being limited.
What'd you say?
I get tired of being limited.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What did you say?
I just want to have really big muscles.
All about the optics there, Will. Now, how about clever? Why would you want to be
You know how
clever?
to solve a problem, build something.
Mhm, yes, it's very helpful. So let's do another question. Would you rather be extremely tall, like maybe even abnormally tall, couldn't find clothes, or normal sized? So extremely tall? Yeah, I think you're already extremely tall. Maybe normal sized? Now, Brian, why do you want to be extremely tall? Everyone seems to disagree with you.
Oh, it's easier to reach things off the shelf.
Yeah, that's true. It's very helpful. Now, how about normal sized?
I'd like to be normal sized because I'm short.
That's a very high goal for you to reach. Okay. Would you rather fight a lion or a bear? So, fight a lion or fight a lion, anyone? Yeah? Fight a bear? Okay, why would you want to fight a lion instead of a bear?
That's what I was gonna say. I'm gonna die, at least it's gonna be a fuzzy cat.
Okay. Big bear?
No cool.
Okay. Anyone else? Why would you want to fight a big bear over a big lion?
I lived in Alaska, and a lot of times bears will, the last minute, will charge you, and then they'll divert. Where a lion will almost always attack its prey, but sometimes it's actually the same. But they'll come at you, and then they won't actually attack you, especially if you stand still.
All right. So, would you rather fight a lion or fight 100 squirrels? Fight a lion? 100 squirrels? Now, why would you want to fight 100 of those little things? Anyone?
Maybe they don't come at me all at once.
Well, they're nice.
Is it one at a time or is it all at once?
All at once. Yeah.
Modern chemistry.
All right. Here's our last question, which will definitely give you a hint at what we're going to talk about today. Would you rather fight a Goliath or fight a David? Fight a Goliath? Fight a David? No, you cannot be the lion, Liz. Why would you want to fight a Goliath?
He doesn't have God?
Yeah.
He's beatable.
Yeah.
That's
David
true.
showed that. He wasn't favored by God like David was.
Mm-hmm.
Slingshot.
I think I saw a couple people say David. Why would you want to do that?
Because I think he might be merciful if I fell down on my knees.
He trusted God.
That is one way to fight, certainly. All right, I'm going to pass it on to worship, which I believe is Matt and Will.
All right. Hello. There we go. So for our second W, each week we usually do worship, and what that typically involves is we will either read a verse or a chapter or some part of the Bible, and we'll talk about how it glorifies God. And sometimes we will go to a park and we'll have some quiet time to ourselves to enjoy nature and to pray. We do a variety of different things for worship, and each one is, they're all helpful for thinking about various ways we can worship God throughout our lives. And sometimes we do music and sing, but that isn't the only way we can worship God. So this morning, Matt and I are going to read from Psalm 68. So, Psalm 68. God shall arise, his enemies shall be scattered, and those who hate him shall flee before him. As smoke is driven away, so you shall drive them away. as wax melts before fire, so shall the wicked perish before God. But the righteous shall be glad. They shall exult before God. They shall be jubilant with joy.
Sing to God. Sing praises to his name. Lift up a song to him who rides through the deserts. His name is the Lord. Exult before him. Father of the fatherless and protector of widows is God in his holy habitation. God settles the solitary in a home. He leads out the prisoners to prosperity, but the rebellious dwell in a parched land.
O God, when you went out before your people, when you marched through the wilderness, the earth quaked, the heavens poured down rain. Before God, the one of Sinai, before God, the God of Israel. Rain in abundance, O God, you shed abroad. You restored your inheritance as it languished. Your flock found a dwelling in it. In your goodness, O God, you provided for the needy.
The Lord gives the word. The women who announce the news are a great host. The king of the armies, they flee, they flee. The woman at home divides the spoil. Though the young men lie among the sheepfolds, the wings of a dove covered with silver, its pinions with shimmering gold. When the Almighty scatters kings there, let snow fall in Zalmon.
O mountain of God, mountain of Bashan, O many-peaked mountain, mountain of Bashan, why do you look with hatred, O many-peaked mountain, at the mount of God that desired for his abode? Yes, where the Lord will dwell forever. The chariots of God are twice 10,000, thousands upon thousands. The Lord is among them. Sinai is now in the sanctuary. You ascended on high, leading a host of captives in your train, and receiving gifts among men, even among the rebellious, that the Lord God may dwell there.
Blessed be the Lord, who daily bears us up. God is our salvation. Our God is a God of salvation. And to God the Lord belongs deliverance from death. For God will strike the heads of his enemies, the hairy crown of him who walks in his guilty ways. The Lord said, I will bring them back from Bashan. I will bring them back from the depths of the sea, that you may strike your feet in their blood, that the tongues of your dogs may have their portion from the foe.
Your procession is seen, O God, the procession of my God, my King, into the sanctuary. The singers in front, the musicians last, between them, virgins playing tambourines. Bless God and the great congregation, the Lord, O you who are of Israel's fountain. There is Benjamin, the least of them, in the lead, the princes of Judah in their throng, the princes of Zebulun, the princes of Naphtali.
Summon your power, O God, the power, O God, by which you have worked for us. Because of your temple at Jerusalem, kings bear gifts to you.
Okay, sure.
Rebuke the beasts that dwell among the reeds, the herds of bulls with the calves of people. Trample underfoot those who lust after tribute. Scatter the peoples who delight in war. Nobles shall come from Egypt. Cush shall hasten to stretch out her hands to God.
O kingdoms of the earth, sing to God, sing praises to the Lord, to him who rides in the heavens, the ancient heavens. Behold, he sends out his voice, his mighty voice. Ascribe power to God, whose majesty is over Israel, and whose power is in the skies. Awesome is God from his sanctuary, the God of Israel. He is the one who gives power and strength to his people. Blessed be God.
So our next W His Word. This is where we will normally dive into the Bible and read a chapter or some sort of section, and sometimes we do it differently. Sometimes we'll have one person read one translation, have another person read another translation, and we'll have a third person retell the whole story by memory and kind of help each other out if we miss details and stuff. But we decided to switch things up a little bit and do one that we don't do very often. I'll be narrating the story, and we will have some fabulous actors in the background. So we'll be able to get just a really good visual, a really accurate visual, 100% accuracy. Not really, but of what this story, contents of this story. So we'll be in 1 Samuel chapter 17, if you want to follow along. Or you just want to keep all your attention diverted to the stage. Either one. This is covering the story of David and Goliath. So, the Philistines now mustered their army for battle and camped between Soka and Judah and Azekah and Ephes-dammim. Saul countered by gathering his Israelite troops near the valley of Elah. So the Philistines and the Israelites faced each other on opposite hills with the valley between them. Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet, and his bronze coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. He also wore bronze leg armor and carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. The shaft of his spear was as heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. His armor-bearer walked ahead of him, carrying a shield. Goliath stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. "Why are you all coming out to fight?" he called. "I am the Philistine champion, for you are only the servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be our slaves. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me." When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. Now, David was the son of a man named Jesse, an Ephrathite from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. Jesse was an old man at the time, and he had 8 sons. Jesse's 3 oldest sons, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shimeah, had already joined Saul's army to fight the Philistines. David was the youngest son. David's 3 oldest brothers stayed with Saul's army, but David went back and forth so he could help his father with the sheep in Bethlehem. For 40 days, every morning and evening, the Philistine champion strutted in front of the Israelite camp. One day, Jesse said to David, "Take this basket of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread, and carry them quickly to your brothers. Give these 10 cuts of cheese to their captain, and see how your brothers are getting along. Bring back a report and see how they're doing." David's brothers were with Saul and the Israelite army at the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. So David left the sheep with another shepherd and set out early the next morning with the gifts as Jesse had directed him. He arrived at the camp just as the Israelite army was leaving for the battlefield, with shouts and battle cries. Soon, the Israelite and Philistine forces stood facing each other, army against army. David left his things with the keeper of supplies and hurried out to the ranks to greet his brothers. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine ranks. Then David heard him shout his usual taunt to the army of Israel. As soon as the Israelite army saw him, they began to run away in fright. "Have you seen the giant?" the men asked. "He comes out each day to defy Israel. The king has offered a huge reward to anyone who kills him. He will give that man one of his daughters for a wife, and the man's entire family will be exempt from paying taxes." David asked the soldiers standing nearby, What will a man get for killing this Philistine and ending his defiance of Israel? Who is this pagan Philistine anyway, that he's allowed to defy the armies of the living God? These men gave David the same reply. They said, yes, that's the reward for killing him. But when David's oldest brother, Eliab, heard David talking to the men, he was angry. What are you doing around here anyway, he demanded. And what about those few sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? I know about your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle. What have I done now? David replied. I was only asking a question. He walked over to some others and asked them the same thing and received the same answer. Then David's question was reported to King Saul, and the king sent for him. Don't worry about this Philistine, David told Saul. I'll go fight him. Don't be ridiculous, Saul replied. There's no way you can fight the Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since his youth. But David persisted. I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, he said. When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. The animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I've done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it against this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion, and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. Finally, Saul consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. Then Saul gave David his own armor, a bronze helmet, and a coat of mail. David put it on, strapped the sword over it, and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. I can't go in these, he protested to Saul. I'm not used to them. So David took them off again. He picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream and put them in his shepherd's bag. Then, armed only with a shepherd's staff and a sling, he started across the valley to fight the Philistine. Goliath walked out toward David with a shield bearer ahead of him, sneering in contempt at this ruddy-faced boy. Am I a dog? He roared at David, that you would come at me with a stick? And he cursed David by the names of his gods. Come over here, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and wild animals, Goliath yelled. David replied to the Philistine, you come at me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. Then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with the sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us. As Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it with his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell down, face forward. So, David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. Then, David ran over and pulled Goliath's sword from its sheath. David used it to kill him and cut off his head. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they turned and ran. And the men of Israel and Judah gave a great shout of triumph and rushed over to the Philistines, chasing them as far as Gath and the gates of Ekron. The bodies of the dead and wounded Philistines were strewn all along the road from Shurim, as far as Gath and Ekron. Then the Israelite army returned and plundered the deserted Philistine camp. David took the Philistines' head to Jerusalem, but he stored the man's armor in his own tent. As Saul watched David go out to fight the Philistine, he asked Abner, the commander of his army, Abner, whose son is this young man? I really don't know, Abner declared. Well, find out who he is, the king told him. As soon as David returned from killing Goliath, Abner brought him to Saul, the Philistine's head still in his hand. Tell me about your father, young man, Saul said. David replied, his name is Jesse, and we live in Bethlehem. Thank you. kind of discuss what we read. We'll generally have like a few kind of like set questions that we'll talk about and kind of apply to each passage that we read. And that way we can really kind of get a look at some key questions about these passages. And one of them, so normally we'll just kind of open up for discussion, but we figured for this setting, we each kind of have our own answer pre-written out, and then we figured to hear what you guys have to say. For each question, we'd open it up to hear from one, maybe two people, and see what you guys thought about how this passage, I guess, spoke to you or things that it taught you. So our first question is, what does this passage teach me about God? We have Matt answer that for us.
Yeah, so looking into this story, this is a story that we don't see God spoke to David or God's direct action in this story, but obviously we know he did his works, and so we see God works even though he didn't have any direct action in this story. Audience?
Yeah. Do you guys have anything that you're like, this is well, I guess I'll use the mic because it's here. If you guys say, yeah, reading this passage, here's something that I learned about God just from reading this, you can go ahead and shout it out or speak loudly. I can also run around with the mic if you want. Or Abdul can run around with the mic. There we go.
I would say faithful.
Faithful?
Yeah, faithful towards the Israelites.
Nothing is impossible for God.
You can use anyone.
God uniquely prepared David for Goliath in his role as a shepherd, fighting with a lion and a bear, which gave him courage as well. Taught him to trust God.
Another thing that I thought about, I'll show this real quick, is a lot of people like in the world say, oh, God's not speaking to me. God's not playing a role in, well, this is a story like Matt said, where God doesn't have any direct instructions. He doesn't tell David, go kill this Philistine. So, and I think that's really cool that in our world today, a lot of people who ask, well, God's not talking to us and interacting in our lives like he did in like the Old Testament, where he directly speak to people. And I think this is a great example of how God works, kind of, I guess, behind the scenes without giving clear instructions. I think that's a good reminder. Our next question is, what does this passage teach us about people?
So, for a little clarification, during our groups, we usually follow these sets of questions. That's where we're getting them from. So we have a little bookmark that Grant has given out to a few people, and I think several of the community groups use these questions. And a couple of the focuses are that we have that we try to always cover each week is how we learn about God from a passage and how we learn about one another from a passage. So I think that the story of David and Goliath tells us that people are intimidated by one another. And I remember David and Goliath was one of my favorite stories growing up from the Bible, from the Old Testament. And I remember asking my parents at home when I was very young how big Goliath was. And this passage says he was over 9 feet tall. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. So I pointed up at a cuckoo clock on our wall and I asked, would he be that tall? And I don't remember what they said, but it was a really I looked up to how David was brave enough to face Goliath, despite how big he was and how impossible that task would look. And I think this passage also tells us how people can cause us to forget about God. And Goliath in this story had fancy armor, he had a huge weapon, big, tall man, and everyone was scared of him. Everyone saw him and they forgot that their God, the most powerful being, was on their side. And I know that I am susceptible to that same thing from being around other people. We have to choose the people that we be around and who will impact our lives. I know that when we were all sitting in the same room, the prayer room upstairs, when Grant asked us to run the service, and immediately I was like, no, please no. I don't want to be up in front of people talking. And that just goes to show, like, I forget about why we were doing this. Why are we up here? We're here to glorify God, to worship Him, to talk about Him, and to spend time with one another. So, David is the opposite. He was the man who faced his people who were all afraid, and he asked them, who is this guy that can defy our God? He is an amazing example of the people that we should try to be around and who remind us what is really important. So, if anyone else has anything that they would like to add, please go ahead.
Next question is, Braden, what does this passage teach us about the gospel?
So last night I was laying on the couch, just brainstorming, like, what does this passage tell us about the gospel? So I was just kind of reading through the passage again and just doing like a side-by-side of the gospels. And so David steps in as Israel's champion to defeat Goliath. And then, like the gospel, Jesus steps in as our champion to defeat sin and death. Another comparison, the fate of Israel rests on one person's battle, and likewise, we get salvation through Christ's victory. So all of our salvation relies on Jesus' battle that he won. And 3, faith over fear. David trusts God's strength over his own to win the battle, even saying, the battle is the Lord's, in verse 47. Likewise, we get salvation through trust and belief in God, not through our own merit and success.
And if you guys have any other cool comparisons or, oh my gosh, this makes me think about this aspect of the gospel, feel free to share.
In the video about Cambodia, they were just compelled by their passion to go and share the gospel. And that's how David, what he was. He was just this automatic passion to say, what? Who's defiling them? Trying to, defile our God? No way. Let's do something about it. And it just hit me.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually an excellent segue. That was really good. So our last question is, what is God calling us to do differently as a result of this passage? And I was thinking about it, and I'm reading through it again, and even listening to it on the car ride here this morning, just to really get some thoughts drilled into my head and see if there's any new, because I think you could read the Bible passage as many times as you want. Every time you're going to pick something different out, and which I think is so cool. And so I'm listening to it here, and I go, like Judy said, he was so passionate. David was so passionate. He's immediately, because he goes, who has the nerve to do this? and he, like a fire is lit up in him, and I think that's so cool. And I think for me personally, there is a lot of times where I either face trouble or there's a situation where I could share the gospel or be some sort of witness to like a coworker or something, or someone I meet, and I shy away. I go, oh, that's a scary situation. That's a big Goliath right there. And like the Israelite army, I go, I don't want to deal with that. I'm just going to stay over here in my corner but really just keeping in mind one, that passion and that desire to do what is right is rewarded by, David's not going, I'm going to do something about this and get out there and get smushed by Goliath. God is there, and God's strength and God's power is what leads him to victory. And it's like Saul said, this Goliath was a man of war from a young man. And so I think one thing for me that I could be doing differently and changing is my mindset of, yes, that might be a scary situation, but it is not through my strength or my actions that if I come out, quote unquote, on top for that situation, that's not because of me. And I can have faith, and I can have the passion and desire to go into that situation and really like either share the gospel or talk to someone about something, and that's something that I have thought about reading this passage for myself. And if there's anything that you guys say, oh my gosh, this is a great point that they said here in this part, and this makes me think about my own life, feel free to share.
When we face difficulties and they look like mountains in front of us, it's calling us to see God behind the mountain. That God is power overpowers the mountain, whatever it is.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to me because it really wasn't David's battle. He was just going there to do what his father said. And how often do we see a situation and we're like, okay, this is not mine. I need to turn and walk away. But you know by what he did that he knew God, that he had such an intense experience with God through all those years of however long he was out there with the sheep or whatever, that he knew God's character, he knew him in such a personal way that when somebody was saying something blasphemous to him, it's like I think about the mother bear in me, like, don't hurt my kid, or I will. That thing, I feel like David had that. It's almost like a mother bear, like, how dare he do that? Because he had that knowledge of who God really was. I don't think there was a shred of doubt in David's mind that he was going to kill Goliath. I don't think there was any fear. I think he's like, no, God has been with me when I've done these other things. I'm good at this. God's like, how dare he do that? And I just love that because it's the passion that comes from the knowledge of another person. You know that other person, and you know what that other person's capable of, and you defend that. And I feel like that was where David was. Like, how dare you talk about my God, our God, like that.
Yeah, that's good. I like that, Karen.
And what Will was saying about people, it's like if somebody else is just standing by and not doing that, how dare you, it's easy for the rest of us to do the same, to follow what everybody else is doing. But I was also thinking what Braden was saying about the gospel is like, David didn't use conventional methods, and neither did Jesus. What he did was not what we expected. It was a lot different, but way more effective too.
I think what you're saying, Karen, is true. If you look at the verse before chapter 17, could you read it for us? And it adds another whole dimension to this, that you'll see after you read this, that there's more than one way of fighting. And you'll see that how David fights the spirit of evil from Saul a different way.
1623?
1627 or 23.
1623, okay, yeah. And whenever the tormenting spirit from God troubled Saul, David would play the harp, and Saul would feel better, and the tormenting spirit would go away. Yeah, I think that's a good, there's so many ways to go about anything. You can see us up here. This is not a normal church service by any means, and so yeah, I love that. We don't have to fight our battles the conventional way. There's a lot of great people, David and Jesus, who didn't do that. And when everyone expected them to do one thing, and they said, well, no, that's not going to work. We're going to think outside the box, or we're going to do something different. And that's really good. With that, we're gonna transfer over to our last W, witness, and we'll have Matt share his testimony with us. We'll scoot some chairs back first from these ones. We'll get these out of the way.
A little bit more intimidating up in front of everybody alone now. Yeah, so witness is our last W that we do. One of us usually voluntarily shares our testimony, something current with our lives, something past in our life that's affected us, and always revolving around ways that we have seen God moving in our life. So I'm up here to share that, and step back so I don't get feedback from the speakers. But up here to share my own witness, and kind of revolving around the theme today that we've had, David and Goliath narrative. I also kind of want to rewrite the definition of success as I knew it. We saw in this wonderful narrative up here, thank you guys, of how David defeated Goliath with Nerf guns, and it was not for his own glory as portrayed, but for God's. But before I get ahead of myself, let me introduce myself. My name is Matthew. I'm the building and grounds lead around here, as some of you might know me. But specifically, I'm an only child. Got a healthy family, really fortunate with that. Middle class. Went to Central Washington University and got my bachelor's degree there. And I want to ask you the question of, what does success look like to you? Is it getting a college degree? Is it driving a nice car? Is it defeating giants? I thought success was mansions and private jets and vacations on a beach in tropical somewhere, and that was success. That's what I thought, and so that's what I strove for most of my life. I had a pretty normal life. I have a normal life, actually. Normal upbringings, going to elementary school, grade school, high school, college, getting a career, getting a good job. But through that progression, I realized that I was never satisfied. I always wanted more, more greed, more those private jets. And so I set that expectation for myself throughout my life. And then it was in high school where I realized that I wasn't going to make that money being a professional sports player. I just wasn't good enough, and so I had to figure out something else to make that money, to meet my expectations. So after school, I went to a construction worker, and I started framing houses, so that's carpentry, all the wood structure of the house. And I would do that after school, walk home from school, do carpentry, And then in the summers full time, I would frame houses full time. So I was a construction worker, and still that wasn't enough. Like I wasn't meeting my own expectations. And so I got another job at Home Depot on the night shift, so that way I could go to school, and then carpentry, and then get Home Depot to make even more. Fast forward through high school, did that all throughout high school, go to community college at home so I could live at home and save the rent money. And then my neighbor moved into town, and he was a realtor. So I thought, hey, realtors, they do a lot of real estate. That's another type of asset. That's something I want to get into as well. So I started realtor class, doing the book work, as on top of the stuff I've already been doing of Home Depot and carpentry and community college. And that was too much. That caused me to burn out pretty fast, actually, after that. And so through community college, that was a pretty dark time in my life. And I even tried ending my life at one point. And my story is that I realized over time that those extra jobs weren't worth it. It was kind of a gradual flow of realization of, hey, I'm never going to get those private jets or those mansions, but do I really want that anyways? And I thought to myself, like, I'm losing friendships. I lost my high school girlfriend. I lost a bunch of my friendships because I treated those relationships as transactions. What can I put into this relationship to get the max benefit out of it from those people? And that is not the way to live life, and I lost a lot of friends that way. So usually this is the point in a story, in like some fairy tale where Prince Charming comes in, the hero comes in, saves the day, and life's changed around. That's not me. It was a slow and gradual realization over time that my aspirations are unachievable. So fast forward to a couple years ago, I finished my AA at community college. I moved to Central, and then I started getting involved with another Christian Missionary Alliance church over in Ellensburg. And yeah, there was a cute girl that brought me there in the first place. But I still got some church knowledge. But while that relationship didn't work out with that girl, I got something more valuable. I got experience and faith. And from that time, my faith grew pretty quickly. And then just last October, I got baptized. And through my growth in my faith, did I realize that success wasn't about those private jets or those mansions, but really knowing Christ with our hearts. Because our God is the God that helped David beat giants, and our God is the God of miracles in everyday lives. Even if we recognize it, like me, over a long period of time, He's our God of miracles. So to conclude, I would say success is found in knowing Jesus. It's not in monetary values or transactional relationships. It's Jesus. And I also invite you to increase your relationship with Him, because He's changed my life, and I'm so happy to know Him. Glory to God. He's awesome. So I'll pass it back to Timmy if you want to pray over our offering, and I think we're going to take offering next. And Edmund, if you want to do he's got some music queued up. Yeah.
Because normally Grant will sing during offering. We're not a musically talented bunch, so gotta get the other offering plate down here. Get all the cheese and bread and greens out of there. So with that, we're going to take an offering. This is a way for the members of our church to help contribute to outreach events, to running the building, so we can continue doing our ministry here at this church. It's not something we're shoving the offering plate in your face. You don't feel obligated to give. If you want to, that is awesome. That's between you and God. But if you have, I will say, if you do have, I should have mentioned this earlier, if you're new here and there's communication cards in the back, if you fill those out, you can put those in the offering plate. We would love to get those in there as well, so we can get to know you a little bit better, and you can get to know us and what we do here a little bit better as well. So with that, I'll have the ushers come forward, and I'll pray for the offering. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this beautiful day and this wonderful weather. Thank you for all these people here coming to this desire to know you more and to worship you, Lord. And I just pray that throughout this upcoming week and past that, you will give us just this passion and this desire to serve you, Lord, and to share the gospel and just be such a witness to those around us, whether Christian or not Christian, and to encourage one another and to uplift one another, and just lean on you, Lord, and your strength in all of our battles. And would you just bless us in that, Lord? In your name we pray. Amen.